The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Brighton podcast. It's your boy Jamie G, and I am joined by my sidekick, my co-host, Blessings Chabamba. Introduce yourself, Bless. How we doing? How did you find the game on Saturday?
Yeah, good. Do you know what? I'm getting used to just picking up points now. It's nice to sit back down in the pod and we've picked up points where I didn't really think we'll get anything out of it, but we have again. We have.
It's just the thing that Brighton keep on doing. We keep on surprising the world, surprising the whole Premier League, and I mean, 2 points dropped will be the name of this pod. But it's 2 points dropped to who? I mean, the pundits were saying, "Oh, have Arsenal dropped 2 points here? Should they have won at home? Should we have won?" I think that's more to the point. Is we've dropped 2 points is what it feels, and that's certainly what Hertzler feels anyway.
Yeah, no. After the game, in his interview, you can see he was actually quite disappointed, which is such like a breath of fresh air. Like being disappointed and not winning the game at the Emirates, that's insane. And the fact that we've been doing this pod for a couple of weeks now, we have not sat down here to review a loss. I love that. So,
Yeah,
man, it's exciting stuff.
the European charge is well and truly still on, and Brighton are still flirting with the top of the league. We're still in and around the danger area of Champions League football, maybe as we go into the international break. We've played two of the traditional big six, and we've come away with 4 points, so not bad going there either. There was finished 1-1, and like we've said, we could have probably had a couple more. But let's just first touch on their goal, and God, how did we concede there? What a bit of a calamity for Lewis Dunk. The ball gets booted over. Should have been an easy win for Lewis Dunk, but then shrugged away by Bukayo Saka to not win the header. Bounces straight to Havertz, who chips it over the keeper. Bless, what was Dunk doing?
Yeah, it's a weird one because he's a big boy, so like long balls like that, you're not even worried. You're like, yeah, he'll deal with that. But I remember watching it and I was thinking, when you're playing FIFA and your controller dies and you just can't control the player, it literally looked like that. He's not jumped. I don't know if he's just trying to sort of let it bounce and like move Saka out the way and then just pass it back home. But yeah, it's a bizarre one, really. Just a lapse of concentration, and obviously it's going to
Genuinely,
cost you.
yeah. I mean, you say his controller died. It certainly did feel like it because there was bits where when it bounced, he was looking up in the air, thinking, "Where's this ball gone?" Like he was like out of the zone for like 30 seconds. It feels, and then he didn't even really track back. He was still lost, out of position, out of mind. Oh God, it was an absolute. Yeah, it's not ideal. And like you say, Dunk formidable in the air usually, and usually you think, oh, don't worry, it's a long ball. They're never going to score from a long ball. It's going to be Dunk and Van Heckers all day, and just one lapse of concentration or getting shrugged off the ball, or getting out muscled by Bukayo Saka, who's at least feels like a foot smaller, than him. I
Yeah,
mean, that cannot be running.
I remember saying like, obviously Bukayo Saka's quite strong for his size. He's quite nimble, but against Dunk, that shouldn't really be happening. I was saying, his shoulder barged him, but his shoulder's probably gone into Dunk's ribs. So it's not really yeah, it's a bizarre one.
The other aspect of the goal is it was a decent chip by Havertz, who's I don't think is that clinical a striker. So I mean, fair enough for an actual decent finish. But do you think Verbruggen should have probably stayed on his line and forced Havertz to come in a one-on-one situation, perhaps where he is slightly weaker or where there potentially he might not have scored from?
Look, it's difficult to criticize Verbruggen because that the whole goal is just a moment chaos, like a mistake, and then all of a sudden it's in, and everyone has to just adjust and wake up a bit. But what I would say, and not necessarily criticism, but I feel like him coming out has given Havertz is made up Havertz's mind for him. I think it would have been harder for Havertz if he had to choose which options to do, and that means staying on his line. I just I feel he's got a better chance, I think, if he just stays and then Havertz either has to decide, which corner to put it in, or even if he needs to try and lift it over him when he gets a bit closer. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough to criticise him there.
Yeah, 100%. I think it is a. I wouldn't say it's Verbruggen's fault in terms of at all, really, because, like you say, he's probably expecting Dunk to win the ball, and that's kind of why he's so far off his line as well. He's probably not expecting danger to come from that situation. But like you say, he probably should be looking, or probably in an ideal situation, probably would have stayed on his line and then kind of forced Havertz to make up a decision or come up with some sort of look to either slot it past him or look to take it round him. And then that also would have given Van Hecke a chance to come back and potentially get in the way or block the shot or kind of put him off in some sense.
Yeah, the way I saw it, because it's a bouncing ball, the chip is on. The chip is on. But if he stays on his line, Havertz is going to have to wait for that ball, control that ball, and actually make sure it's, on the ground and then slot it away. And I don't really think, obviously, he's a good striker, Havertz, but I'm not
We aren't
really moved
confident in
by
him
him. Do
doing
you know
it.
what I mean? So, I fancy it more.
Yeah. But we did manage to peg one back to make it 1-1, and that came in the second half after a controversial topic that we were going to touch on in the next segment, so stick around for that. But it was João Pedro, that man again, coming up clutch against these big teams. Talk us through the goal, Bless, and what you liked most about it.
It's a brilliant bit of movement from Minter, but Dunk picks it up quite deep in Brighton's own half, moves it up a bit further forwards, and it's a delightful pass. It just cuts out the whole Arsenal team. And we talked a lot about Minter and his pace. We saw it there against a very, very quick Arsenal backline as well. But he still managed to get ahead, and then obviously shot's been saved, a decent save to be fair, and the man himself, João Pedro, slots it home. What I loved about that is just the predatory instincts to sort of be in and around the box from João Pedro. Just like something's going to happen here. Although Minter's through on 1-on-1, he's not just standing there just waiting for something to happen. He's gone into the box just in case it comes out and he's slotted away. I absolutely love that, the anticipation.
Yeah, Dunk redeemed himself with such a good ball. That is kind of that's like throwback OG Lewis Dunk. The long balls, the passing that we all know and love for him. That's made him a bit of a cult hero at our club. That is the thing I liked most about the goal, and I don't know whether the listeners at home spotted it, but it was the movement between Mitoma, and we were sat there watching it together. It was the movement between Mitoma and Minter, where they swapped positions, and then that kind of gave Minter that space away from Saliba to make that run. But it just created some miscommunication between Saliba and Gabriel as to who's going to go with who, and then that kind of freed up the space for Minter to run into the space and get his shot away. And then, like you say, Pedro sensing where to be, where it's going to land, where the parry's going to be, and being the first on the scene to knock it home. That's great goal, honestly. That was it was the Dunk pass that really redeemed himself, didn't he? And you could tell him and Van Hecke were really pleased with that. Like, they both celebrated by themselves, going, yes, what a pass that was. And that was the kind of difference maker. After this short ad, we are going to talk about the Declan Rice red card that has been very controversial and all over the press and the media, and everyone's had a little opinion on it. If you've been scouring social media, you're hearing Arsenal fans crying about it still. And we've probably cost them the title already. I mean, I don't mind that. So stick around after the break and we'll talk about that red card and give you our opinions on it.
Do you have a story to tell that the world needs to hear? Have you struggled with reaching new audiences who are engaged of your story? It might be time for you to start a podcast. Let me tell you about a platform we use here at Global Sports Podcast Network. Zencastr makes it easy to start a high-quality podcast built for growth from day one. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes ums, ahs, you knows, and 22 other speech patterns, Zencastr makes it super easy to start a podcast that sounds great. Ready to tell your story? Check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
And we are back to talk about, or to review the game and the talking points of Arsenal v Brighton's 1-1 draw. Now, the biggest talking point, and I can still hear violins playing in the background. I don't know whether you can as well, Bless, but it's those Arsenal fans. They've got those violins out. They are playing the orchestra. Oh, are they still crying about this red card? I mean, what do you think of it?
So it's a weird one because, again, we all know what Veltman's trying to do, but I think the law's the law, isn't it? The law's the law. You cannot delay. You cannot delay the restart. That's as simple as that. A lot of Arsenal fans are
Them's the
saying.
rules.
I think a lot of Arsenal fans might have thought Veltman was the one getting the card. So it's funny to see that it's actually gone to Rice in the end.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, them's the rules, I'm afraid. You can't kick the ball away. That's a second yellow. They all know the rule. And we need to clear one thing up because they're all saying, oh, that's such a stupid rule and I can't believe he got sent off for kicking the ball away. But it is also because he didn't retreat quick enough and he delayed the taking of the free kick. And like you say, that genius Joel Veltman, he knows what he's doing. He knows he's on a yellow. He knows if he just boots him, and I also not a fan of Declan Rice, so I also enjoyed the kick. So that's just what a personal one for me. I think he heard me and thought, yeah, I'm doing this for the Daily Brighton podcast. But they all know the rules. You shouldn't have kicked it away. Now we did. We were watching it together, and we heard Martin Keown's comments after the game directly to Fabian Hertzler, and it's good to still see like really unbiased punditry. I don't know how you feel about that, Bless. He was not salty in the slightest, was he?
It was such a weird watch the way he. So Fabian Hertz has come on and they're speaking about the game, and it's actually Kieran who asks him about that particular incident, and he asks one question. Hertz is sort of deflected and given the
Yeah,
politician answer, the manager answer, and then he's gone and asked him again. It's just like, mate, let it go. Like it's not Hertz's fault. And at the end of the day, you cannot. I mean, we've said it. You cannot delay the restart. If that was allowed, imagine what the game would be like. Everyone would be doing it. It would be silly.
Yeah, I mean, the game would get if everyone was allowed to do that. I mean, the game would be 110 minutes, not 90 minutes. If you just keep delaying restarts, then I mean, there has to be some boundaries in. Now, this is where I will play devil's advocate because, rightly so, Arsenal fans and football fans are saying, oh, then why didn't João Pedro get booked in the first half for booting the ball 30 metres away? And that's what a couple of the Arsenal players said as well, which is a fair point. And I think, yeah, that was an oversight by the referee. He probably should have booked him and he should be consistent. I think that's where so many fans and why this is such a talking point is the consistency of refereeing. We are seeing it in the Premier League once again. The consistency just isn't there, is it?
Yeah, and that is the main issue. A lot of people are okay with the letter of the law. It's just how it's applied. It's horrific sometimes. Like even within the game, there's lack of consistency. So not even like across the board in terms of
Yeah.
referees, it's literally the same referee, but he's
Yeah.
made two different decisions. That's what makes people furious. Like at the end of the day, João Pedro has to get booked for that. It was funny. I saw a tweet talking about the distance each kick travelled. So they're like, oh, João Pedro's one went miles away, and Declan Rice's one was only a little one. It's like, no.
I reckon an Arsenal fan was tweeting that. I
Yeah.
bet you. I guess from a neutral's perspective, do we want to see sendings off for bootings away? Do you think it's kind of because we'll touch on the stats after the ad break, and we'll go into more detail about how the red card changed the game, and it changed it a lot. And for a neutral's perspective, I can imagine it wasn't that enjoyable to watch after that sending off happened. Do you want to see sendings off for things like that?
Obviously, it's not great to see. You never want to see, someone getting sent off in general. But again, I'll just say, like, we need something in place so that people are not doing that.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm really anti delaying the restart. I just think the game will go on for so long. If that's okay to do, people like it'll be ridiculous.
Yeah.
And giving a card is it deters people from doing it.
Mm.
I think it's on Declan Rice, really. Like, you might get a card by doing that. You're already in a yellow card. Move back.
It's like a lack of judgment kind of decision from Declan Rice, who is a very experienced player nowadays, and he knows the rules. I mean, he's English, so he doesn't even have the oh, I didn't understand what the rules were when the referees came into the clubs before the game or before the season started to explain the rules. He doesn't even have that excuse to fall back on. One thing I did like, and I think I saw him with the award, but I think the Premier League actually, I know TNT Sports gave man of the match to João Pedro. I think the Premier League, the official Premier League, gave man of the match to Joel Veltman, who posted a picture after the game with it. And that just felt like such a rubbing salt in the wounds.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
But yeah, we will talk about after the break how that red card did change things in a good way for Brighton in the second half. So join us back.
This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
And welcome back to Blessings and Jamie talking about Brighton's impressive performance against Arsenal, the title challengers themselves. So yeah, the red card changed the game completely. And some stats here for those listening and perhaps who didn't get a chance to watch it. But after that, the second half stats, Brighton had 78% possession. We had 19 shots in the second half. Three of them, we only had three in the first half, and six of them did come from outside the box. But yeah, for those listening, Bless, what did you see on the eyes in terms of how we played and what happened after that sending off took place?
Yeah, it was surprising to see the way Arsenal responded to it, and I think the way they responded also helped us, dominate the game even more. They went straight away to a back five, which I felt like I don't know. I felt like if they stayed in a 4-4-1, they could still cause a bit of trouble. But yeah, they went into a back five and just sat off really deep. So Brighton had a lot of the ball, applied the pressure, but just couldn't crack.
Yeah, I mean, it was so weird seeing them be so defensive. Like, it was kind of like they were at home as well. They were playing for a draw. And we have an Arsenal fan as our friend, don't we? And he was saying, he was happy with the decision to play so defensive. He was happy to take a draw against Brighton, who obviously we are elite. So, I mean, I'm sure they are probably happy they're lucky to get a point. So I'm sure they are happy with the point. But yeah, he said that they were happy that he was happy with Mikel Arteta's decision to kind of park the bus. They had 10 men behind the ball basically for most of the second half. That's why we dominated the ball so much. And they were keen to, or seemed content to play on the counter, which doesn't feel very, feels very negative for a team that are trying to win the league.
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely bizarre. I mean, yes, being a man down, there is going to be a difference, and the other team's probably going to have the ball. But I still felt like, even with the five at the back, they did create two chances that they
Mm-hmm.
could have scored. But I feel like if they were in a 4-1, I was saying earlier, they would have definitely had a couple more better opportunities in countering. Um, yeah, it was so bizarre. I mean, I think even Brighton were a bit shocked that they were dropping off that deep, and that's probably why they were getting caught in the counter attack a couple of times. But
Yeah, 100%.
I just
Um,
wonder um, if that was a chance missed for us, because 19 shots is a lot.
yeah, I mean, I feel like if it was Man City and they went down to 10 men, I feel like they would have still kept possession or carried on attacking and tried going for the win. I think that's where potentially the different in mindset is between the two clubs. But I guess that's an Arsenal problem to kind of figure out. uh, you did mention the chances that they did have, and it was a big save from Verbruggen at that moment in time in the 58th minute, I believe it was, when Havertz was one on one. It was just basically a hit and hope ball from Urian Timber, who lovely control by Havertz, who kind of pinned Van Hecker, brought the ball into, brought the ball down, tapped it ahead of him, basically one on one with the keeper, with Van Hecker kind of shrugging him or trying to put him off as much as he could. Then a big outstretched leg by Verbruggen to save the shot, which big save. Especially, it makes it more impressive the fact that we had possession for so long and he was basically out of the game because we were camping in their half to still be switched on and be concentrating for that long to make a save like that.
Yeah, I thought it was an excellent save, and I would compare it as well to the goal Havertz did score, and the fact that it's on the ground, it's not bouncing up, means that Havertz has to decide what to do, and he's gone for the typical across the keeper finish, and the Braggon stood strong and saved it. It's a brilliant save. I think those are the kind of moments that, like, if Brighton are going to progress and try and finish better than they did last season, those are the little moments where you're like, yeah, that's a bit of quality. That's kept the game alive, got the point. It would
Yeah.
have been sad to see if a an
Yeah.
Arsenal
If
team
we
with less players
yeah,
scored that
actually
goal.
score against us. I mean, they also created another chance in the 78th minute where, yet again, just another hit and hope ball up the line to Havertz, who crossed it in for Saka, and then yet another big save from Verbruggen, although this one was more at him. Do you think we kind of committed too many men forward once they did go down to 10 men?
Yeah, I did think in moments that there was just a bit too much space down the flanks, and we know how good Saka is. We know how quick he is, and up against Van Heck and Dunk, they're not the quickest. So it's yeah. I'm sure they must have felt a bit uncomfortable playing that hard on the halfway line and having to run back. But I wonder if, because what I noticed as well, so Belieber wasn't sitting and holding back; he was also getting involved as well. I
Mm,
think it would have been better if perhaps he sat back a little bit deeper just to give him that extra protection. Maybe make it like a little back three kind of thing as we
mm.
played. But I feel like as the game went on in this sort of pattern where we're in their half, Herzog just wanted to win. So it was, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that is we've spoken about it in the past, haven't we? Where that's one thing we love about Fabian Herzog is that he seems to be so attacking still, and seems to want to, like last week, by going for it when Man United had went against Man United when we scored the 95th minute winner. he seems to never be content with a draw and always want to go for the win, which, I mean, I am all for. And we kind of predicted that this might lead in the preseason. We predicted that this might lead to basketball type games where they are kind of end to end. The only thing that made me a bit wary is, like you say, Havertz and Saka being left basically one on one with Dunk and Van Hecker, who aren't, or Dunk isn't particularly the quickest. When they're sprinting back, that was the thing I was like, oh, maybe a bit like shaky and nervous. Oh, I'm a bit nervous. So yeah, that was the thing. But we did have chances ourselves. There was a big miss by Ayari. Van Hecker just heard the Brighton fans go shoot, shot ricocheted straight into Ayari's path, and then had the whole goal to aim at, and shot it straight at Raya. Ah, oh, big miss for Ayari.
Yeah, it was. It's a massive chance. I think if the keeper, I don't think he's seen the keeper dive. He doesn't know the keeper's on the floor, because I think if the keeper's where he's meant to be, that's a good effort. But obviously, the keeper's already dived and he's already in that area. It just needed to fall to someone with a little bit more composure to just know where the keeper is and just roll it in the acres of space that was
Yeah,
left. Um,
yeah. I mean,
I-
anyone else, really, isn't it? Just
yeah, and
any.
I think, like I'm always going to back my guy. I know we haven't spoke about him yet, but I think a chance like that for a man like Danny Welbeck is milk and bread.
uh, we had, so like we mentioned, we had 19 shots, but 6 of them were outside the box, and we didn't really seem to ever trouble Raya, other than that chance that Ayari missed. Why do you think we did struggle to break down their low block? Is it because of how good the Arsenal defenders are, and when they are playing in such a system that's impossible to kind of break down? Or do you think we did something that wasn't quite right, or we just struggled in some sense?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think where when they got Calafiori on and they had Timber, they had White. These well, apart from Timber, but these are centre backs sort of playing in wider positions. And for most of the game, anyway, Gabriel and Saliba had my guy locked up.
Yeah,
My guy did not touch the ball a lot in
he
that
was in
game. They had
prison.
him
He
locked
was
up.
in bed.
It was tough for him. So that was already gone. So if Welbeck's sort of out the game, they're locked up. It's then up to the boys like João Pedro, Ruta when he came on to maybe get into that box, make a run, and a bit of trickery, and something happens. But
Yeah,
those pockets were then being closed up by Ben White tucking in, Calafiori on the other side as well. So it's like, they made it very tough for
yeah.
anything in and around the box for uh, João Pedro to get on the end
Do
of.
anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when they do sit so tight and compact together, those spaces just aren't there to really play around in. Especially, it's, I mean, Burnley on steroids, really, wasn't it? It was the traditional Sean Dyche Burnley, but on steroids in terms of just so having such a defensive shape, but with such good players, seems like a bit of a cheat code. And if they go 1-0 up, I imagine that's a difficult task for any team to try and get back in. Maybe that's the way to the title. Maybe they found something new in doing that. But yeah, that was everything that we wanted to cover in this podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed watching Brighton absolutely trounce Arsenal on the weekend, although we didn't get the win. But after the international break, we are back and we are ready to continue our European title charge. So join us there. Thank you very much, Bless, for speaking to me again, and we'll see you on the next pod.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.